amazing. And as many people know, I've come to Raleigh County an awful lot during my tenure in office. But I do want to share an anecdote with you, because the first time I came to Raleigh County back in 2012, I remember the time I was visiting the local county chair, Republican, and I think I had 2 people at my first meeting. We've come a long way, Raleigh County, haven't we? And in fact, at that time, a lot of people said, you know, Morrisey, you're running for Attorney General. Don't waste your time going in southern West Virginia. I am very happy I ignored their advice. Because frankly, in every election, we've been able to really gain a lot of support from southern West Virginia, because quite frankly, I think my values have been consistent with this area. Whether you care about America's energy independence and our use of coal, or you know the difference between men and women, or you know that we have to spearhead huge initiatives to combat the drug epidemic, people knew what my values were all about. So it's been tremendous to be here. I want to recognize a couple people who are instrumental in putting this event together, but I also want to thank my wife for coming here tonight. Let's give a round of applause for Denise. You have to be really patient to be married to Patrick Morrisey. There's no doubt about that. I see my chief deputy, Doug Buffington. He's done a great job in the AG's office. Anyone. There are too many dignitaries, but so many people helped make this event successful. I know, Rodney LaRose, and Brian, thanks to you, and the Kessingers. Mike is such an amazing guy. Julie and Mike Kaminsky. I'll tell you, these guys are powerhouses organizing the event. Doug Epling and Donnie Holcomb and J.C. Gould, and I see we've got our committee men, Beth Block and Larry Pack. Larry's also going to be our next treasurer in West Virginia. Philip and Ike Morris and Bill Cole. I could go on and on. So I apologize if I don't mention everyone, but a lot of great electeds, a lot of people stepping up to help me. And one thing that you know, if you know Patrick Morrisey, is that I'm entitled to nothing in my life. That's how I was raised. But I also joke, I'm not afraid to ask for a just cause. And so I want to say, I know I've leaned on all of you tonight and in the past to raise money, and you've come through. A lot of you helped in the primary. If you didn't help in the primary, you're on the team. We're all together now. You know why? West Virginia citizens, they are our client, and we're going to do really big things to help West Virginia grow in a way you've never seen happen before. I remember when I first announced to run for governor, I got in front, it probably took just a couple of weeks. I wanted to make sure we got out and supported Donald J. Trump. He will be again the next president of the United States. The reason why I'm strongly behind him, it mirrors a lot about the reasons why I'm running for governor. Our way of life is very much at stake in this election. If you think about what the Biden administration, Biden-Harris administration, they've been trying to do, they're trying to target West Virginia. Think about our energy resources. They don't think we should mine coal. They don't think that we should produce natural gas to fuel our economy into the future. They don't think much about manufacturing jobs. They look at West Virginia as collateral damage in their crazy way. So what have we done about it? Well, as your Attorney General, I've stood up time after time to fight against this crazy far-left agenda. Green New Deal, West Virginia was the lead state, and we've won virtually every time against the radical Biden-Harris administration. But those folks in D.C. and the radicals, Harris and our wild Veep candidate, I can't get over that guy, by the way. He's just amazing to watch. But they don't care about the loss of jobs. They may say that the climate, if you do everything they say may change 0.00001 over a 100-year period, and they would destroy West Virginia and many states to make that happen. It makes no sense. That's what's motivated us to fight. And I know it matters for the residents of Raleigh County. It matters for southern West Virginia because we need those jobs. We're not the richest state in the nation, so we need them to remain in place. And eventually, as we start to take some of the policies and put them in place, the ones we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to have a future that's not just reliant on coal and energy jobs. It's going to be broad amount of wealth for everyone. But you can't take away coal from West Virginia. And as AG, I've not let that happen. As governor, we'll double down, and that will not happen to our great state. So I'm thrilled to have that opportunity. Now, I will say that I had a tough primary. I look around the room, I see a lot of friends. But the good news is we are all on the same page. Because my opponent, he's part of that far left agenda. And we can't let him win. We can't let him get anywhere close to the governor's mansion. And the reason is because West Virginia deserves good, conservative leadership. Limited government based upon the Constitution. That's my record as Attorney General. And I always have thought that the best way to determine how someone's going to behave in the future is look at what they've done in the past. We have a record that's second to none. And if you like what I've done as Attorney General, I think you're going to love what we're going to do as Governor. It's interesting because now we're coming in, we're getting toward the end of August, so a lot of people are starting to say, well, what would your administration look like? I'll say, well, first of all, do not call me governor yet. I'm not. I'm going to earn it on election day. We do still have elections in West Virginia, even if the Democrat Party nationally doesn't believe it. What we're going to do is we're going to engage to transform our government in a way that's going to be the envy of all the states in the country. Now, I know I'm in southern West Virginia, and I'm going to give a WVU example, so you can forgive me for that. But during the last few years, I've talked a lot about being economically more competitive with the other states that we touch. And I've used an example. I think many people have heard about the fierce rivalry between WVU and Pitt, right? And it's called the backyard brawl. And every year, if you're a WVU fan, I know I'm in Marshall territory, Coach, but every year you hear about half a day. People go, they'll tailgate. It's a big deal for the state of West Virginia. And West Virginia's put everything in to beating the arch enemy, the Pittsburgh Panthers. Well, I want to, as your governor, have a backyard brawl economically with all the states that we touch. What do I mean by that? Well, you start by looking at your neighbors. Right now, West Virginia, it's made some progress, there's no doubt. But we have a very long way in front of us. And we have to do much more to help lift up our standard of living, drive our workforce participation numbers up, and have educational attainment at the level that's needed. Right? I think we all would agree on that. But we do have that opportunity. But what we need to do is to compete and move from 48, 49, 50th of the country, start to move to 40, to 30, to 20, to 10, and up. You have to look and compete regionally. So what's going on in Maryland and Virginia and Pennsylvania, Ohio and Kentucky? And on day one of a Morrisey administration, what I want to do is lay out, work with the legislature on this, and lay out, here's every tax that exists in West Virginia. Here's every regulation. Here's every workforce policy rule. Here's every licensing rule and standard. Here are the educational policies. And then working with the legislature, pick the freest and most dynamic economic policies to make sure that West Virginia can win in that competition with the other states. That way, because at the end of the day, for a governor to be successful, we need the people behind us. It's never just about one person. When I run for elections, I'm dependent upon you. It's all part of a team. And the public needs to come behind this and be committed for some of the real change that's going to be required for us to move up in those rankings. I know I'm committed to it. I know a lot of people in this room are committed to it, but we need to bring the entire state behind it. I know Governor Justice has been fond of talking about wiping away the income tax. I would like to wipe away the income tax. I think that should be a big goal. we have to address the other pieces that are meaningful that will help attract new people to our state. Here's why. I think the workforce participation challenges we have, they're probably number one on the list. We have to grow our population and we have to put a lot more people to work. Why? Because right now we're still last in workforce participation. That absolutely has to change. We have to reverse the dynamic that we've had where West Virginia loses in the census and we lose representation in Congress. Grow or die. And that's what we're going to do. And I know the time for West Virginia is high, so we are going to grow. And when you look at that, what we have to do is say, well, what causes people to want to move to a state? Well, taxes obviously are very high on the list, and we talk about that. We're going to be more competitive on the tax side. Educational attainment. West Virginia needs to be the #1 state in the country that have the broadest school choice laws in America. And I want to work with the legislation to make that happen. Because if you're a young family and you're thinking of moving to a state, and we're getting some of these new job opportunities that are coming, if you're a young parent, what do you think about it? Well, you want your kids to do very well. They have to have access to good schools. And I think the quickest, most successful way to do it is to have broad school choice. So that's going to be critical. Then we're going to look at the regulatory overhang that we have in West Virginia. Now, I think there have been some good things done, and West Virginia has gotten better since the Republicans took over. There's no doubt about that. But we need to go much further. And what I want to do is look at every single regulation in the state of West Virginia. I want to examine it, and once again, compare it to all the states that we touch. Why are we regulating in all these different areas? And why do we have all these boards and state agencies? Let's look for ways to be transformative, save the resources, and put it back in people's pocket. Those are things we need to do. I want people to think of West Virginia not only as a place that's very attractive on the tax side, but from a regulatory perspective, people need to look and say, oh my God, they're being really aggressive, wiping away regulations. That's going to make it much more attractive for people to come here. And you start to add those things up. You start to think of taxes, you start to think of education policy, you think of regulation, and obviously then driving the infrastructure forward. I think Governor Justice, when he committed to the road bond, I think that's ended up helping West Virginia tremendously. We have to look for new ways to drive infrastructure spending in our state. We need to battle it. We need to lower capital expenditures right here. And in fact, if I had to summarize what a Morrisey administration is going to look like, the best thing I would say is we're going to remove all the barriers that make it a lot harder for people to live, work, and play in West Virginia. And we're going to remove the barriers that limit the flow of capital into our state. And we're going to do all of this while we maintain our West Virginia conservative values. After I won the primary, I talked to some people, and they said, well, you know, what kind of Republican are you going to be? I said, look, I'm a strong economic conservative, but I'm also a social conservative as well. Because I think that West Virginians care. They care about pro-life views. They care about your Second Amendment rights. And they do care about men trying to play sports with women. And we're going to make sure that when America looks at West Virginia, they see a model of what other states can build on. That's the goal. But it's going to be a little bit different than what folks are used to. I want to set specific metrics for how we're going to grow. Not just talk about these big platitudes. I want to make sure that we're hitting the mark and we're growing the way we need to, because we do have challenges. We know that a lot of the opportunities that have come to West Virginia came in as a result of the COVID monies. We have to make sure that we're making the tough decisions on taxes, on regulation, on infrastructure. For instance, managing the broadband money. We've got huge opportunity, $1.2 billion of federal broadband money. The next governor has to implement that the right way. That's going to take a lot of time. We get to do all of these things. And when we're successful, you'll start to see West Virginia move up in those rankings. And it'll mean something to everyday people. Better standard of living. So you can afford to go out to eat a little bit more often. You can afford to go to the schools of your choice. You can afford to splurge a little bit and take your family out and go on a vacation. West Virginia, we have the most beautiful state in the nation. And I've been to 48 of the 50 states, and I don't think anyone comes close to West Virginia. That's a big deal. Now, we've gotten our arms around some of the pain pill issues, but now the challenge has moved over to this deadly fentanyl. And a lot of it comes into our state because we have the original ingredients coming in from China and then going over to Mexico where the drug cartels package it together and they flood it in to our state. And people die at an alarming rate. That's why a lot of people are still dying to drug overdoses in West Virginia, because of that deadly fentanyl. Well, I've already been talking to some of my future colleagues. My colleagues, Louisiana, former AG, he now is the governor over there. And I want to put pressure, when President Trump is there, to make fentanyl listed as a weapon of mass destruction. It is a terrible, terrible drug, and we have to make sure we keep it out of West Virginia. And we're going to do things to once again be more competitive. That's going to be the buzzword that you're going to hear. But I'm excited about the opportunity. And the fact is that West Virginia has got a little extra bounce in its step that we haven't had before. We have a chance. And my hope is to come up with a common agenda, working with the legislature. Wouldn't it be nice for the governor to come in, work with the House, work with the Senate, and know all the bills that we're going to be moving? At least the first 40 or 50 or so. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to try to make sure we provide our state with all the amazing opportunities in front of it. Because at the end of the day, we're all doing this for the people. This is not any one person's power play. This is a chance to serve. I'm fond of saying to people that I work for you, and I do. I take it very seriously. I may disagree with you from time to time, but I work for you. And we have to take that humble servant mindset into this next administration. And when we do, I think there's no stopping West Virginia. A lot of opportunity, but now we have to seal the deal. And Coach, to go back to your line, we need championships in West Virginia. Championships on taxes, on regulation, on educational attainment, on infrastructure, and to be that most attractive state. I think we have it in us. I really do. So I'm optimistic about our future. And I'm glad to be here in Raleigh County tonight. You guys have treated me so well over the years. You've supported me through my 3 terms as Attorney General. And I'm just excited to get to work. On that front, by the way, I can tell you, we've been a little bit busy lately out of the AG's office, but we are going to begin to work with some of our experts as we're starting to think through some transition issues. I'm not going to take anything for granted. We're not measuring the drapes in the mansion, I promise you that. But we have to make sure we get really terrific, bright people to serve. People who want to make our state better. I'm thrilled with that opportunity, and I'm looking forward to getting to work on January 13th.